One of the things that you should understand before you go too far in creating your own website is that creating graphics for the web is very different than creating graphics for the print side of things. The main difference or concern being that file size for loading speed purposes. You want your graphics to load quickly. Maybe that's not a big deal in a lot of areas anymore, but there's still some people that are on slower devices and lower bands of internet access and so on. And so it's still a concern. You don't want to take like a picture that you took with your iPhone at the highest resolution and so on, and then try to upload that. Although most of the upload tools will compress it some. But if you're creating graphics and you're into that and finding things and so on, here's just a few tips for you. There are two main things to be careful of as you create graphics for your website. As I just mentioned, resolution. You don't need your images to be high resolution files because the higher the resolution, the bigger the file size. You don't need resolution to be higher than 72 dots per inch or DPI. We call 72 DPI real life or one-to-one resolution, which simply means that it transfers over in size exactly the way that you see it in your graphics program, as long as you're not zoomed into it or whatever that you're using to create it. Another thing is transparency. And so do you need the image that you're creating to blend into your background? Maybe you have a colored background and you don't want this big white box around your actual image. In other words, you need the background to be transparent. If so, then you must save the file in one of two formats, either a GIF or GIF, graphics user interface, or a PNG, a PNG, portable network graphics. Either one of those two file types will allow you to save as a transparent background. If you happen to be fortunate enough to have access to Adobe Photoshop, any version of it, then working with resolution and transparency are relatively easy. When you create a new document in Photoshop, be sure to make the resolution 72 DPI. And once you are done creating your logo or other graphic, then be sure to save it with all of its layers in case you want to go back and change anything. Also, though, you want to go to File, Save for the Web, and in different versions of Photoshop, that's notated just a little bit differently. This will bring up a 4-part Save dialog box, which will allow you to save the file as a GIF or GIF or PNG. It's really not critical which one you choose for our purposes here. Just be sure that the transparency box up in the kind of the top right hand corner is checked off. Once that file is saved, then it's ready to include in your website pages. If you don't need transparency, then you can save the file as one of the file formats anyway, or you can save it as a JPEG. All those will typically work in any of the web design tools that we're using. Just don't save it as a default Photoshop file of .psd, Photoshop document, because no browser understands that file format and the file will be huge. And so that's just not going to work. So be sure you save it as export it as something else. However, if you don't have access to Adobe Photoshop, then there are a few free alternatives to Photoshop that you might want to check out. GIMP is the biggest one. It's been around for a long, long time. GIMP stands for New Image Manipulation Program. It's a free downloadable piece of software. Again, it's been around for a long time, proven itself over and over again to be more than safe for your computer. It is probably the best alternative to Photoshop as free. It may take a little getting used to, but it is very powerful. You can find GIMP at the link below. Another tool is Pixlr, Pixlr. This one is also very powerful, but what makes this one stand out a little is that it resides completely in the cloud. It doesn't require you to download any software for your computer at all. It's just a web page, a web app within your browser. You edit your images completely online. You can find Pixlr at the link below. And then there used to be a really great online photo editor called Picnik, Picnik, but Google bought it and then incorporated its tools into their own photo editor. However, only available to Google Plus members now. Fortunately, a couple of the main engineers who created Picnik in the first place went off on their own and created a new online photo editor called PicMonkey. And so, again, the link is below if you want to check that one out. These are all tools that are just kind of fun to play with, too. By the way, none of these photo editors, at least in the past, have allowed you to export your files as GIFs or GIFs. They do allow for PNG exports, though. Take some time, play around with these tools. See if one seems easier than the other to you, and try your hand at creating or editing a particular image for your site, exporting it, and then uploading it to be included on one of your pages. There are many other tools out there to create specific types of graphics like clip art or even animated GIFs. The little clip art looking images, although they can be photos as well, they typically then have animated motion to them. If you have a need or desire to create these types of graphics, I would encourage you to Google tutorials or search tutorials within YouTube on how to create those types of images. Let's move on to video. If you're going to create video, which actually one of the assignments for this course is to create a video, a screencast, and embed it within your site. So you're going to need to do at least a piece of this at some point soon. So if you're going to create videos to be included in your site, which is one of the main reasons to have a site, is to have instructional videos there, of you either teaching a lesson or a demonstration of an experiment or how to do a set of instructions or whatever it might be. Then the critical step in getting it prepared to be part of your website is to be sure and compress it to where it loads for your users relatively quickly. One of the easiest ways to do that is to upload your video to YouTube. It has its own compression tool as it's processing that video. But also makes it to where your video is sitting on their server and your site just links to it, plays directly from their site. The only downside to this is if YouTube is blocked on your campus. I'm not sure how many campuses that's true anymore, but you may not want to use it if your students won't have access to it from your campus. If you do choose to use YouTube, then you will want to embed, it's called, your video from YouTube into your classroom site. And I've outlined the steps below how to do that, but just going through them real quick. When you have your video up, there's a little kind of right turn arrow below your video, the share button. You can click on that. Then there will be several options underneath it. One of those is embed. It's actually the first one, embed, with the two symbols on either side of it. When you click on embed, they'll come up, another window will pop up, and there'll be some text that shows up, and it's already highlighted for you to copy. There's a copy button there. So you can copy that text. Once you've done that, then you will go into your page editor, whatever tool you're using, Google Sites, Weebly, Wix, whatever, and get inside of the HTML editing tool. And so you're going to be actually editing that HTML code. And so every one of them has an HTML editing tool. You'll have to find that. Place your cursor behind the text where you want the video to go. So you kind of got to pay attention before you hit the HTML tool. See in the page where you want your video to be embedded, like this one is embedded in this page that you're looking at. And then you want to type what I have down below here, but it's essentially the less than symbol, P, and then the greater than symbol, which stands for paragraph. And then paste that copied text that you copied from YouTube, and then type that same thing again, less than, but then a slash, P, greater than. That's HTML code. Those are called tags. Then exit the HTML editor, save your page, and look at it again in a browser and see if your video is amidst the rest of your page where you wanted it. If not, you'll have to go in and kind of play around with that process. Otherwise, if you create a screencast or video and you don't want to post it to YouTube for whatever reasons, maybe it's blocked on your campus or whatever, then you'll want to be sure to export it out of the software that you're creating it in, and you want it to be compressed again. And so most of those softwares now have a setting to where it would say either have a preset to where it's exported either for the web, or it will just say export for YouTube. And even though you're not going to use it on YouTube, it's just compressing it for YouTube. And so you would want to use that setting. And so you'll export it to where it kind of reformats the file size to where it will stream well from wherever you're going to post it. And then it will compress it and resize it and so on. Each of our page editing tools, Google Sites, Weebly, so on, has built-in tools for embedding videos within the page. I'm going to leave it to you to either find these tools on your own, depending on which one of the editors you're using, or have the ability to find a YouTube tutorial on how to embed within the site. Do be aware that if instead of YouTube you choose something like Google Drive to store your videos, or somewhere else, but Google Drive specifically, if it's within your school's Google account, only people that have access to your school's Google account, students, teachers, parents, possibly, so on, will be able to view those videos, just so you're aware of that. But there are other hosting services out there that you can use and embed your videos from those as well. I'll let you play around with that some. And again, all of this information is the script of this is essentially pasted below for you to find those links and get the details. I know there's a lot of detail here to be able to see that in text if you would prefer it that way. Hopefully this works out well for you. Enjoy making graphics and video for your site. It's fun.